Hey friends, welcome to the Empowered Homes podcast. My name is Bobby. I'm just so thankful that you're listening or watching on YouTube. If you would, do us a favor. If you're on Spotify or Apple Podcasts, leave us a review. The more reviews we get, the more traction we get picked up on all the ratings and all that stuff. Give us a rating and shout out. If you're watching on YouTube, go ahead and subscribe so that we could get more content to you. If you subscribe, every time we upload one of these, you get a notification on your phone or device or email. We'd love for that. So the purpose of this podcast is simple but a powerful one. We want to grow strong families by connecting church and home. And we are just passionate about your home. And so thank you for listening and taking the time today. Today's episode is a special one. It's just me. I'm going to be sharing with you some resources. On social media, a lot of times we throw out, hey, what topics do you want to discuss on the podcast? Or what are some things that you'd like more information on? And today, we're answering one of those requests on Instagram. A few months ago, someone asked, what are some marriage resources, marriage books that you would recommend? And so today, I've got a few books in front of me that I want to go over. Some of these are specifically to marriage, and some of these are have nothing to do with marriage, but they speak to leadership. They speak to me and have kind of impacted me. So these aren't the top 5 books, although I do have 5 of them, really 6. I got a bonus one in here, but they're not in any order. They're just books that over the years have made an impact on me and my marriage. And just to start off, my marriage is not perfect. There's no such thing. But these have helped me grow as a husband. And so I hope it would encourage you. Before we get started, all the links to these books are going to be in the description on YouTube or the podcast itself. So let's jump into the books. We have 6 sitting in front of us. The first one, sorry, shameless plug. This is our 30-day devotional for prayer. And so I and my wife and Brad Flurry and his wife, we wrote this book, 30 Days of Prayer to Grow Strong Marriage. We wrote 30 different prayers in this book. We have a prayer that you can go through and read over your wife. And then wives, there's a prayer for you to go through and read over your husband. And then there's a prayer that you just read out loud together. And there's 3 prayers each day. It's 30 days just to challenge you. We talk a lot about intimacy in marriage, and it's vital. You got physical intimacy, emotional intimacy, and this is a tool for spiritual intimacy. And so shameless plug because I wrote this. So this doesn't really count, but if you want this is on empoweredhomes.org. You can download the entire PDF of this for free, print it off, and use it whenever you want. But you can also grab a copy of this. Email me, podcast@empoweredhomes.org. I'll mail you a physical copy. If you're like me, you like to have the hardback or hard copy in your hands, I'll mail you one wherever you're at. Or you can pick them up if you're around the Katy area at Kingsland Baptist Church. So that's the first one. We got 30 Days of Prayer to Grow a Strong Marriage. Just a really good resource to check out. The next one that we have, it's called Love and Respect. So Love and Respect. This is actually the workbook. I have a copy of the physical book, but this is the workbook of this. And the basic premise of this book is we get wrapped up in this crazy cycle. And he says, when she feels unloved, she can react in ways that feel disrespectful to him. And when he feels disrespected, he can react in ways that feel unloving to her. And all around and around they go. Nobody wants to be in this crazy cycle. So the premise of the book is, our wives need love and husbands need respect. But this kind of goes through, and one of the things that just hit me when I was going through this for myself was to be more intentional with how I shepherd and love my wife. What are ways that I can do to communicate how much I deeply and desperately love her? The other side of that is to check my pride when it comes to respect. Yes, every man wants to be respected, and that's part of our DNA. But sometimes my desire for respect is wrapped up in pride. Well, you should respect me in this way. when the reality is I'm putting expectations on that respect that shouldn't be there. And so I've got to check those things. And really great for couples. The workbook, you can go together as a couple. It's a lot of fill in the blanks, a lot of questionnaires, a lot of things to talk and discuss. Fantastic book and workbook. I would highly recommend this. It's a good one. So this one's Love and Respect for couples, individuals, and groups. Really, really good. That's the second one. The third book. This one is not a marriage book per se, but it is a powerful one. If you're in any leadership capacity, this book is for you. It's called Fairness is Overrated. Fairness is Overrated. This is a leadership book. It's has nothing to do with marriage, but it speaks so much to marriage. 51 leadership principles to revolutionize your workplace. Again, as leaders in our home, husband and wives, especially if we have kids in our home, we're leaders. Like part of parenting is leading our kids in such a way. And so this book, it's short reads, each chapter, like 51 chapters. You're like, man, that's a lot, but it's really short. One of my favorite parts of this book is creating a culture in your organization, or flip that, creating a culture in your home. And so it gives you parameters of what do you want that culture to be? Because if you're not building a culture is being formed in your home. And whether that's a good culture or a bad culture, this gives you some parameters and some really key things to go through. And it really has helped me to keep the target on the wall for what do I want my family to be known for? What do I want my kids to feel about our home and our culture in our home? And ultimately, like, what does my wife think about the culture of what she's in and surrounded in? And so it's just really good book, lots of key principles. So I would recommend this one for if you're a leader of leaders, if you work in a company or organization, this is a fantastic book for you. Fairness is Overrated. That's the other part of it, is a lot of times we try to keep score in marriage. Well, I got to go away with my friends for a golf trip. Well, because you did that, now I get a weekend with my friends to go shopping. Like, stop keeping score. Fairness is overrated. That's not what the point is, and this is a really good tool and resource for us. So, not a marriage book, but you'll be blessed by this one. Really good stuff. Next book is Gary Smalley, John Trent, The Language of Love. The Language of Love. This is not, don't confuse it with 5 love languages, although they mention things about the 5 love languages. But the languages of love, or the language of love, it really goes back to how we communicate in such a way, and they really hone in on this thing called emotional word pictures. And so how do we communicate our emotions and feelings in a healthy way, using these word pictures to describe exactly what's going on inside of us? And so the secret to being instantly understood. It's a powerful, powerful book. This is put on by Focus on the Family. Lots of great things in here. If you haven't pick this up, it has workbooks. There's actually a website, if you go to The Language of Love, that gives you some assessment tools and some other great things for your marriage. This is just a fantastic book for wherever you're at. If you're a newlywed, amazing. But if you've been married for 50 years, it kind of gives you some insight and just some reminders of how we communicate, because sometimes our communication can get toxic and negative, but this allows us to communicate what's really going on in a healthy way so that we're not harming or hurting, using language that we know. I know my wife. I know what to say to hurt her, and she knows me, and she knows what to say to hurt me. How do we break that cycle and use words and word pictures, is what they call, to communicate in such a way that I can say what's on my mind without hurting her heart. So the Language of Love, it's really, really good book. Another book that would want everybody, again, it's not necessarily a marriage book. It's not a marriage book really at all, but it's fantastic. And this book is called Boundaries. Cloud and Townsend, Boundaries. Just, man, there's a lot to this. It may take you some time to get through this book, but they have a chapter on here having boundaries with your spouse. And one quote says, "To try and control these things is to violate someone's boundaries, and ultimately the attempt will fail. Our relationship with Christ and any other successful relationship is based on freedom." And so I love what this is. How do we set up boundaries to establish more freedom? Boundaries sound like it's restrictive in nature, but they're talking about how do we set up boundaries so that we can live free inside those boundaries, especially in our marriage. But it talks about just your whole life. It talks about every aspect of who you are. The tagline is when to say yes, how to say no. Take control of your life. Because if we don't set boundaries in work, we don't set boundaries with friends, we don't set boundaries with all of the things that we have going on, we're going to burn out. And this is a good one for couples. This is a good one for marriage, just to understand that healthy boundaries are good and they're okay. And so this is a easy book for you. It's a hard one to read, so just gonna throw that out there. They're not big words or anything, but there's just so much packed into here that you'll need to take your time through it. So last but not least, I don't have a copy of the book. I tried to find my copy of this book, and I couldn't because I gave it away. But it makes a point. You may not like to read. You may not like a physical book. You may not even like a Kindle. And this book in particular, I read or didn't read. I don't know if you read an audiobook or you listen. I guess I listened to this book. But this is Bob Goff's Everybody Always. So this is what the book looks like. I printed off a copy of the cover. Everybody Always. It's a fantastic book. It says, "Becoming love in a world full of setbacks and difficult people." Why do I bring up this book? It's not about marriage. Again, I tried to find things that would help your marriage without it being specifically driven. What this did for us, we were in the middle of transition and we were driving back and forth about 4 hours several years ago when this book came out. And so that's 8 hours in a car. We would drive up and then drive back. And it was just me and my wife. We were working on lots of different stuff. That's a whole nother story. But we listened to this book in the car together. And just the little stories and things in this that Bob Goff references, and I don't want to give it away. You got to go listen. It's fantastic. Listen if you're an audiobook. Just the way you could feel the joy in his heart and his voice when he's telling these stories. But Everybody Always has helped us remember that together as a team, we're called to be ambassadors of the gospel. And our marriage represents the gospel to the world around us. And so how do we love everybody always? How do we love those around us together? And so this book has challenged us. How do we bring people into our home that may not look like us? How do we bring people into our home that are different religions, different worldviews, different political views, but love them well? And so it also has some really key challenges for us. You know, one of the chapters, it talks about patience. And in the chapter, he talks about carrying a bucket around with him as a patience bucket to remind him to be patient, to slow down. And so because of that, my wife got me a little bitty bucket. It's a little galvanized bucket. It sits in my truck. And she put that as a reminder for me to be patient. One, I do struggle with being impatient, but it was a way for her to just love me and shepherd me and help me to be reminded to be patient. And so it's just if you're not into books, this is an audio book. All of these you can find an audio book. The workbook of Love and Respect may be a little harder for audio, but I would challenge you to get into that. So those are my books that I want to reference for you. Here's the next part I'd ask for you. If you're watching on YouTube or you're on Spotify or wherever you're consuming this today, I want some help. What books, resources have helped you? We're going to post this on social media. If you're listening to this on social media, share with us what resources have helped you. These are just a few that have helped me throughout the years, and I hope that they encourage you. If you're looking for something to try and to read or work through, you can do that to work on your marriage. But the key is with these resources is being intentional. Read If you like to read, read. If you want to listen to the audiobook, listen to the audiobook. If you like the workbooks better because it's more engaging, do those. I try to have all of these things, but the point is there's no such thing as a perfect marriage, and we can always work and get better in our marriages. And so, again, if you got any other resources or anything you want to share with us, please let us know. You can email us at podcast@empoweredhomes.org. If you have other topics or ideas for episodes, you have a question or you want us to address something, email us. podcast@empoweredhomes.org. We'd love to hear from you. Here's my challenge and prayer for you and your marriage, that whether or not you've been married for 2 months or 20 years, 50 years, we can always spend some time working on our marriage and loving our spouses and taking the time to do those things. And what I love about empoweredhomes.org is we have a whole category designed to help your marriage to grow strong marriages. And so if you haven't been on there in a while, empoweredhomes.org/marriage, you'll find some incredible resources. Thanks for watching today. Again, go check out Empowered Homes. But if you got any questions, comments, or concerns, please email us at empoweredhomes.org.